I encourage you guys to share this because every time Jim Jordan thinks that his opinion matters, anytime he wants to say something combative, anytime he wants to lie, I see it as an opportunity to bring up the fact that he has been accused of covering up sexual abuse. So share this video. I definitely recommend you do that. Representative Jim Jordan, a Trump loyalist and a man who seems to have a knack for covering up sexual abuse allegations allegedly, has decided to throw stones at Liz Cheney for refusing to lie to the American people about the 2020 election. She has refused to regurgitate Donald Trump's talking points about how the election was stolen from him, something that he had no evidence of. Now, let's hear Jim Jordan's exchange with Laura Ingraham about Liz Cheney and why she was ousted from Republican leadership.
Now, how is anything she's saying different from any garden variety left-wing pundit on MSNBC? I mean, they're literally citing her every morning on MSNBC and talk about her plight and how courageous she is. Like, if Republicans are getting praised by that crowd, isn't that kind of an obvious, well, that's not the person you want leading the party?
No, and this is not new. This happened on January 13th when the Democrats went with their impeachment. I was the guy charged with managing our time on the Republican side, and all we heard was Steny Hoyer and other Democrats reciting statements that Congresswoman Cheney had made. That this has been a pattern, and I think frankly now there's just enough of our conference who've said we got to make a change, and it's going to happen tomorrow morning.
Again, we tried to warn them and they didn't listen.
We tried to warn them and they didn't listen. She's like the most unbearable, insufferable person on Fox. I know that there's a long list of people who fall under that category, but there's something about Laura Ingraham that, anyway. So Jim Jordan knows that Liz Cheney has voted along with Trump. She is a committed conservative vote on the policies, on the any issue that Republicans want to get passed. Liz Cheney has been on board. In fact, she has voted along with Donald Trump far more often than Elise Stefanik, who is now going to take Liz Cheney's role in the leadership position that Cheney was ousted from. And what's amazing here is what we're hearing from the Republican Party. This is important. Is that even when they know the truth, even when they know right from wrong, they are going to do whatever is necessary to push back against Biden. That is their number one priority. That's all they care about. So even if Biden does something good, something that they typically would agree with, they're going to pretend they disagree and they're going to push back against it because their whole purpose, even if it hurts their own constituents, is to push back against Biden. So I say that because every time we hear from Senator Joe Manchin about the importance of working with the Republican Party, understand that they have no interest in doing that at all. They don't care. They don't care about how effective the infrastructure policies would be in improving the lives of Republican constituents in their states. They don't care about whether those very policies are policies that they themselves would want to champion if they were in the position of power that Biden's in. Their whole point is to push back against Joe Biden no matter what, and that includes perpetuating a lie that the election was stolen from Donald Trump. So I'm not interested in hearing Joe Manchin's stupid lies, because that's what they are in effect, lies about the importance of bipartisanship and reaching across the aisle and working together. They don't want to work with Democrats. They've made that abundantly clear, and Joe Manchin is just using that as cover for the fact that he wants to do right by his corporate donors. So that's part number one of this story. Part number two is this. Since Jim Jordan felt the need to remind me about his existence by doing that interview, I feel the need to repeat a story that we've already covered, but every time that Jim Jordan wants to do a media appearance, I'm gonna repeat the story. We're gonna cover it every single time that Jim Jordan goes out there in the media to get a little attention for himself and to lie. Jim Jordan certainly has some cojones to go on national television and accuse Liz Cheney of anything when he himself has faced some very serious allegations of covering up sexual assault and sexual abuse allegations at Ohio State University. This is a story that's been developing for years now. Jim Jordan accused of begging former Ohio State wrestler not to support reports of sexual abuse. We should watch a quick report on that just to remember what that abuse was.
Ohio State announced it was investigating abuse allegations against a man by the name of Dr. Richard Strauss for allegedly abusing students from the mid-1970s to the mid-late 1990s. One former wrestler telling CNN Dr. Strauss touched him inappropriately starting when he was a teenager. He says Strauss sexually molested some of his other teammates as well. That wrestler, Michael DiSabato, says it was common knowledge among team members about this doctor and about what he would allegedly do during examinations. DiSabato says he and other wrestlers spoke openly about it, openly about inappropriate touching, and he says staff, including Jim Jordan, who was a wrestling coach at the time, he says knew about what the doctor was allegedly doing.
So Jim Jordan was apparently approached by several athletes about this sexual abuse. The perpetrator, Richard Strauss, is no longer alive, so he's not gonna face the criminal consequences that he deserves to face. However, if Jim Jordan did in fact know about this abuse and went out of his way to cover it up, he should certainly suffer the consequences of that. I mean, people forget to even mention it. I mean, imagine inviting this guy on your show to opine on anything as he's facing this investigation. Now, of course, Jim Jordan completely denies it. However, there's already been some fascinating testimony from the brother of Mike DiSabato. His name is Adam DiSabato. And Mike DiSabato was the whistleblower who exposed the abuse by Richard Strauss. He testified, by the way, Wednesday during, this is an old report, so not Wednesday of this week, but earlier, during a public hearing in the state legislature, that when the story came out in July of 2018, he received a tearful phone call from Jim Jordan. What was that phone call about? Well, why don't we take a little listen to Adam DiSabato.
Jim Jordan called me crying, groveling on the 4th of July, begging me to go against my brother, begging me, crying for a half hour. That's the kind of cover-ups that's going on there. Jim Jordan called me several times after that. That week, I had to have my lawyer call him, tell him to stop calling me. I had a teammate, George Pardos, I called and told him, call Jim Jordan and tell him to quit calling me or I'm gonna beat his ass. He's throwing us under the bus, all of us. He's a coward. He's a coward. He's not a leader. He's a coward.
He certainly is a coward because as much as I despise Jim Jordan, I will give him enough credit to acknowledge that he knows what the truth is regarding the 2020 election. But he's too afraid. He doesn't have the courage to do what Liz Cheney did, which in my opinion is not that difficult. Tell the truth about the 2020 election. He's terrified of Donald Trump. He's terrified of Trump supporters, and he would rather squander and destroy our democratic process, our democracy, freedom, all of the things that Republicans claim to care so much about. He would rather destroy all of that in order to be the coward he is and go along with Donald Trump's talking points and lies about the 2020 election. That's who Jim Jordan is. He's also the type of guy, according to multiple allegations now, who will help cover up the abuse perpetrated by a sexual predator. And Fox News will invite him on so he can share his perspective and his point of view, his cowardly, disgusting perspective on Liz Cheney in the 2020 election. An Ohio State independent investigation into the abuse did not make conclusive determinations about whether particular employees knew about the abuse by Strauss, but this is important, but a report issued in May said coaches did know. It said Strauss, who killed himself in 2005, sexually abused at least 177 male students from 1979 to 1996. And if Jim Jordan did call Adam DiSabato and begged him to stop talking about it, begged him to change his story, pretty sure those phone records exist. So we'll find out eventually what Jim Jordan really knew, what he didn't know, how he engaged in this controversy. What I do know for sure, though, is that Jim Jordan is a complete and utter coward and an embarrassment to this country.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.